Manx Radio's Countryside is brought to you by NFU Mutual.
Hello and welcome to Countryside here on Manx Radio. I'm Simon Clark.
And I'm Kirree. At the weekend I popped along to the Mallards house in Santon with the Southern Beekeepers.
I found out how last Thursday's opening of the first phase of the Queen's Pier in Ramsey to the general public went. And also, I went along to the Southern Showfield to find out how preparations were going ahead of this weekend's show. Well, Kirree, finally a little bit cooler out, so that'll be good news to the livestock handlers.
My golly, it's been some heat, hasn't it, Simon? Unbelievable. Feels a bit like 2018 again, really. And some of the ground out there is looking a bit parched now and a bit burnt. I think it's going to be pressing times. We're desperate for rain. Yeah,
plenty of combines out up north too at the moment going.
Right.
Yeah, so the crops are ready. They'll have plenty of sun to ripen them anyway.
This is it. And there's always them crops that you're desperately hoping to get in, isn't it, for the straw, especially for the winter months. You don't know how long these winters are these days.
No, one of the sad things, obviously a couple of reports of farm machinery getting alight during these hot times, and with the hay and straw and things like that. So it's always a worry, isn't it? Everything's so dry.
That's it. It's especially with the like you say, the temperature gauges there. And a lot of these modern tractors, a lot of electrical wiring on them these days, so it's not quite like it used to be. But like you say, a lot of hay getting made, and we don't normally get hay weather, do we? So there'll be a lot less plastic being used around the farms this year.
Make hay when the sun shines.
Absolutely.
Anyway, this weekend, of course, is a new venture for the Southern and District Agricultural Society, with their show moving to Orrisdale Farm this year. I went along to the show field. I spoke to the Vice President, also the Secretary, Sarah Comish, and firstly to the President, Stephen Gorn. To quash the rumours, the show's still on.
The show is definitely going ahead. We are not even thinking about cancelling it. It might be different to what we normally have. Well, it will be different to what we normally have. We've had one or two trade stands dropped out. We've had one or two exhibitors drop out, but it's still going ahead.
Of course, that's the up to the individual's concern. It'll be the same for the general public, isn't it?
Yeah. It's an open air event, so we're going to be open air. The tents will be one way. Hopefully some of the sides will be dropped if the conditions allow, so there'll be plenty of air. We're putting as much in place to mitigate this disease as we can.
Well, that's all you can do, because it's been a trying time, and I think a lot of the general public have just said, let's try and get on with it. But there's always the views from every side, of course. But the shows, people know the rules. They know to avoid the areas if they're told to and things like that. But obviously you and the committee are looking forward to it all.
Yeah, it's certainly been a challenge, a big challenge this year with moving venue and all the COVID and everything. We've been put behind schedule with not being able to have meetings when we were in lockdown, and it's been a lot harder than it would normally have been, but hopefully it will be a lot better.
Yeah, and it's one of them, you hit the nail on the head in a way, because at least if you didn't get all the meetings done, you sort of come where it's been before, where you know where such and such a tent, you know how people are going to get in and out. Have you got all that finalised now?
Yes, I'll say yes. Vice President daughter's been doing more of the planning than I have. I've just been telling her that she's putting some things in the wrong place. But yeah, it's good to go.
Let's have a quick chat with the Secretary then, Sarah Comish. You've got the job of taking all the events in and finding out who's still coming, and has there been as good a take as other years, apart from the ones that have dropped out? But I mean, the interest, has it been the same as when it's been at Great Meadow?
Yeah, it has actually. We're a little bit down on some of our livestock exhibitors this year, but there's been a variety of reasons for that. And for the majority of trade stands are still coming and still very enthusiastic to come. So we've lost one or two, but really, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that much different. In fact, we've had a really good uptake on stands this year. And also the feedback I'm getting from the general public is they're still really keen to come.
At least it didn't happen last week when the temperatures were at the highest they've been for a long time. But I suppose, was there any of the livestock exhibitors that were going to come were worried about that?
No, we knew the weather was going to change a little bit and cool down, which is better. When everybody's showing and you've got livestock on the field, you don't actually want that kind of heat at all. You need a bit of... Ideally for livestock exhibitors, they'd have a little bit of cloud cover or maybe a breeze or something just to keep things cool for the animals. And it's the same in the fur and feather tent as well, and for the horses exhibiting on the horse field. They like it to be just a little bit cooler. I know lots of the visitors like hot sunshine, but the animals don't always like it.
The going will be firm for the horses and ponies anyway.
Yeah, we're keeping an eye on that.
And looking around the show fields now, there's some wheelie bins in place at least, and one of the marquees is up, but it's early days yet, isn't it?
Some wheelie bins and barriers, yeah. No, it is starting to take shape, and we're really looking forward to being up here. It's going to be a cracking showground, and quite a few people have said to me already that they think it's going to be lovely up here. So we're excited about it.
Let's have a quick chat with the Vice President then, Bryony Vernon. Everything in order entertainment-wise, because that seems to be your role in this year's show, certainly.
So this year we have main ring entertainment all day Saturday and all day Sunday. We've got the Ellen Van gymnastics, we've got vintage tractor displays, we've got the dancing dogs.
Dancing dogs?
Dancing dogs!
Okay.
I think that's what they do. We obviously will have the Grand Parade on the Saturday. We've got vintage tractor displays at various points throughout the weekend. And on the Saturday after the Grand Parade, about 4:30, we do have the world famous purple helmets.
Oh, wow, it's going to be incredible. And the ring itself, is it going to be a similar size to it's been in previous years?
Yeah, pretty much the same size. We've got a lot to fit in. Obviously the vintage tractors take up a lot of space, the purple helmets want a lot of space. We're just going to utilise the space as much as possible, but that's not to say the cattle haven't got their own rings this year. Normally they're in the main ring, but this year they've been given their own rings, so people can obviously see them being shown and judged as well, but there will be stuff on at the same time.
Brilliant stuff. Well, of course, Stephen said there about the hoping to get the one-way systems in the tent just to take away some of the pressure of people, and of course there'll be the hand stations and stuff like that as well. Yeah,
we've got hand sanitizer all over the show field. Obviously if people want to bring masks and wear masks, that's totally their choice as well, and we just ask everyone to respect people's distance and be safe and be kind.
Looking forward to it now?
Yes, definitely looking forward to it. Having had a year off, it has been a bit of a shock to the system, having to come back down the show field all the time, but yeah, definitely looking forward to it.
Bryony Vernon, the Vice President, Sarah Comish, the Secretary, and firstly, Stephen Gorn, the President of the Southern and District Agricultural Show. And don't forget, access to the show will be from the Douglas to Castletown Road, the A5. You go up the Orrisdale Road for the general public parking. It's one way as well, and the parking will be on the right. There'll be no access from the St Mark's Road. There are traffic lights about, so set off in good time. And also, there's bus stops at the bottom of Orrisdale Road, regular bus services at the weekend, so avoid the rush there. It's all going to be ready and taking place, and great to see how chilled out they were ahead of it, and looking forward to it, Kirree.
They're a really lovely bunch of people, the committee, many of them farming people themselves, just taking it all in their stride. It's a proper team effort, and yes, at the weekend there, Sunday, flat out they were putting cattle hurdles and sheep hurdles everywhere they wanted. We had a good team of Belinda Cool cutting the fields the week before, Kenny Cool baling them up, getting it all tidied, and now it's over to the committee.
Well, you've been a busy bee as well.
Absolutely. I popped along to a lovely, lovely gardens there at the Mallards in Santon, where I caught up with the Southern Beekeepers who were having a look around the garden there at Mark Shuttleworth's. I caught up with Cilla Platt and Gwen Kelly just before we set off.
How are the bees this year? It's been quite a long spring, cold spring. How are things happening now?
Well, certainly the bees are making up for lost time, because we were really worried at the Marown teaching apiary because in the spring when it was so cold we were having to open up the hives just because we were teaching, and the bees were seriously grumpy about it.
No.
But also there was very little stores coming in, so we were thinking, oh God, they're going to starve. But and we did actually have to feed at one point because Moran is in the middle of a bit of a desert, a floral desert. But anyway, they seem to be picking up now, fortunately, and going great guns, and it's much easier to open them up when they're flying massively.
And how were the numbers this year? With it obviously quite a hard spring, like you say, if people weren't feeding them, did they diminish?
I don't think we lost too many colonies over winter, but the colonies took a long time to build up this spring. But now they're just making up for lost time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gwen, this today at Mallards here in Stanton is organised by the Southern Beekeepers and yourself, the secretary. A beautiful garden.
It certainly is. We visited here about 2 years ago, and we've come back to see the improvements that he's making, and it's a beautiful place.
It is a bit of a place with a difference, though. It's quite elaborate.
It's very nice. The lawns that you see here, they're not grass. They are full of crocuses in the winter time, in spring, and all through the summer there's thyme. So he doesn't have to cut the grass, it's just thyme in places and clover. So anybody who's fed up mowing their lawn, you can plant some thyme and some clover, and it looks beautiful, and it's a feast for all the pollinators and the bees all through the summer for weeks at a time.
And the way that they've got the beds laid out, it looks quite Celtic in the design of it, doesn't it?
It certainly does. That this afternoon we're going to have a talk by Monique, who is the new botanist, and from Andrew, who is his chief gardener here. So it's going to be very interesting. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah. And how do you find the plants that Mark has brought to the garden, because it's a Japanese style garden? How will that sort of adapt to our bees, or the bees adapt to the plants?
Well, I think actually the Japanese section is really quite a small section. He's got lots of fields planted up for trees of different countries, aren't they?
Yeah.
When we walked around last time, he was saying, oh, these trees are all from New Zealand, and he grows them from seed. I don't think there's any importation of live trees. And they are tiny, I suppose. They have been when we last came in 2019. But a couple of years is going to make a big difference. And it will be amazing. As it matures, it's going to be such a big improvement on the area, because, you know, the insects, the birds, the general population of botanical plants and as I say, insects, it's just going to make such a difference in this area. And
especially in this area, myself and Gwen both farm in Stanton. The agri-environment scheme is now coming into play with DEFRA. It's a change about in the countryside. How do you feel that will change our farming enterprises?
More mindful of what you're planting. I notice some farmers are planting fields with herbs, and Paul Castaigne's got a field this year with lots of different herbs and chicory and things in. So hopefully that might encourage other people to plant.
It's the unknown, isn't it, in the farming world, that you sort of don't particularly like change, but obviously seeing how much this helps the wildlife, and with the numbers and populations seeming to be slowing up or setting back, this is really quite important.
It certainly is, that we've got to provide even wildlife corridors for the pollinating insects. It's no use just having 20 acres somewhere and then nothing the rest of the island. It's got to be all joined up, and it's joined up thinking that we need.
Yeah. So it's a bit of change coming about, but obviously they've got a lovely, we're having a lovely summer, aren't we? This July is something of scorchio weather. How is it going to be for the bees going on through the rest of the year?
Well, they've been very busy. They've been busy swarming. We've been gathering up swarms from all around the island, and when repopulating hives. So we're not short of honeybees at the moment. It's been very good for the bumblebees as well. So we're just looking forward to, the bramble is flowering now, so the beekeepers will be taking their honey off in a few weeks' time, and then
hopefully a good crop.
Hopefully a very good crop.
And that said, the shows are just around the corner too.
Yes, we have our show in November most years. I think it's in November this year as well. This is our honey show in St John's, and it's an annual event where beekeepers from all over the island come together and exhibit all the different types of honey from all over the island. And as I say, it's absolutely amazing. Every year, without fail, there is colours from the darkest brown to almost water clear, and they're all perfect honey. So of course they've not been tampered with and nothing's been added to them. They are just genuine honey off the local bees, and you can't get better than that.
You really can, and they taste all very different too, I believe.
They do, they really do. Yeah, and I've been reading today, we have the British Beekeepers booklet which comes out once a month, and I was reading today that actually the honey, if you have 20 grams a day, that it improves your gut flora amazingly, and there's work going on trying to prove that local honeys are almost as good, if not better at times, than Manuka.
Well, that said, it wouldn't take me much encouragement to get into honey. It is absolutely lovely, and I do find the Manx honey is just beautiful, isn't it?
It certainly is. It's got a wonderful taste.
It's a unique taste. I suppose where you are, Gwen, you were saying about the garlic, the wild garlic, and lots of clover. Mm-hmm. It does just change it a little bit, doesn't it?
It certainly does. You can keep bees, like 3 or 4 miles apart, and the honey can taste totally different. Just depends what they're foraging on.
Yeah.
And we're going to be at the Southern Show this Saturday, in the beekeepers' tent, and we'll have an observation hive so people can come in and look for the queen in amongst the bees, and we shall have some honey for sale.
That was Cilla Platt and Gwen Kelly, the Secretary of the Southern Beekeepers at the Botanical Gardens at the Mallards in Santon.
And honey resources good?
Very good. The ladies say that the bees are being very busy at the moment, getting round, and they can't wait to see us at the weekend at the Southern District Show, where they'll have a live apiary for us to have a look through and spot the queen.
You're listening to Countryside here on Manx Radio with Kirree Kermode and myself, Simon Clark. Well, last Thursday marked a landmark in the history of the famous Queen's Pier in Ramsey. It's been closed to the public for many, many years, but the Queen's Pier Restoration Trust had an open to the public of Phase 1 day on Thursday, and Captain Stuart Mackenzie, one of the leaders of the group, spoke to me, and, well, I asked him had he recovered from the heat of Thursday.
I think I've probably recovered now. The heat was something which was difficult to overcome. And even though I spent a lot of my life out in the Far East, making 27, 28 degrees C, my goodness, that was quite a difficult thing.
Now, the opening of that first phase to allow the public on, that must have been was it an emotional time for you and your team?
Yes, it was. You always want to achieve something, don't you? I mean, when you start, we started, 4 years ago to actually do the restoration. And, as the old steel, or old iron to be more precise, came off and you put your new steel on, then there were the stringers and the beams and the coping beams and the wailing boards, and then finally, of course, we put the Eckie boards on, and you suddenly realised it was coming together. And so on Thursday it was the summation of all the work that we'd done over this period of time, and it looked good. And because the little train could come down from the Kirree Museum, it looked even better.
Now, the train is that, I believe that's the original train that used to go on it.
It is the original train, and the only thing that's perhaps different about it is people didn't realise that the engine was changed sometime. The original was, I think, a Planet diesel, and at some point in time, I don't know quite when, they changed it for a Ford V4. Now it's only static because it's sitting on a particular point on the pier at the moment over the Green Heart. Eventually it will run up and down the pier, providing we can find the railway lines. There are special protocol, they're called an S3 line apparently, which is a bit special as far as I'm concerned, and they're not very common rail apparently. But we've got enough at the moment.
The first section that's opened, that's particularly rewarding for yourselves, because I think last time I spoke to you, it seemed to be the most difficult to engineer.
Yes, it certainly was. Apart from anything else, the Bay 1 is 40 odd feet wide, whereas the normal bays are only 22 feet wide. So you have to arrange the toe in as it goes from 40 down to 20, and that was quite difficult to have the design replicated.
But now, of course, you've got started on it. It's going to get easier, I believe, by the way that you're carrying on, and it's just such an achievement, isn't it, to come from really nearly the end of it, as most people said.
Yes, I mean, phase 2, you see, is 5 bays, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're almost identical to base 3, which we've already done, so we know what the problems are likely to be. The main thing that's facing us is that the land crane can no longer reach out as far as that. We've had tremendous help from the Broads and the Isle of Man crane services, which can reach out to the centre of Bay 3, but they can't reach Bay 4. So we're going to have to utilise, probably for phase 2, a telehandler with a sufficient height to let us put the steel on from the beach during the intertidal periods. And of course, the further out you get, the less the intertidal period is going to be. So probably the last one where you can do that is Bay 8. Bay 9 becomes the first one which is a spreader. So it goes out, it gives lateral stability to the pier. And we're not doing that in this phase, it's in the next phase.
Okay. What sort of reaction did you get? There would have been, I would imagine, a lot of Ramsey residents who've walked that pier in their youth or a few years ago who took the chance to get back on Thursday.
Yes, they did, but it wasn't them that I noticed particularly. It was all the flaming fishermen.
Really?
Yes, the fishermen. I did this, I did that. I found them. I got this huge conger eel off the, and they're forever. I thought to myself, well, now, obviously we want to start running fishing competitions and charging.
But it's amazing, I suppose, a lot of childhood memories are from the fishing because it was somewhere relaxing. It was a lovely view back towards Ramsey when you're at the end of that pier, isn't it?
Yes, and what you perhaps don't fully appreciate is how long the pier is. I mean, at 2160, it's longer than Snape Hill is high.
That's in feet?
In feet, yes. 2160, yes. Sorry, I'm very old. I work in feet. And that's half a mile. So if you're going out to the far end, the older you get, the harder it gets, I can tell you that.
But it is, and like I say, when we were at the grammar school, spent a lot of time, we could come down in the lunch times and have a walk out, and there was people out there, and of course in the summer with the train running, and there was people just enjoying it as a holiday resort, and something special about it.
Yes, there were quite a few people actually who have, I don't quite understand this COVID regulation business about who can come to the island, who couldn't, but there were a lot of people from UK actually on the pier as well. So obviously the relaxation has allowed that, and they came because they had come in the past, and therefore they were revisiting something which they'd come when they were perhaps younger.
And what did they make of that? How were they talking about their memories of it?
They were indeed, and it's fascinating to hear all the people who had actually been on it as a child. And I think that everybody, they welcomed the fact that we managed to do this as volunteers.
Some great pictures and some ornaments and things that you've got there of you and your oilskins from the start of this project, Stuart. Yeah. You must be immensely proud of how far you've got, and all the Queen's Pier Restoration Trust.
Yes, I think the fact that the volunteers have stuck at it, hell and high water, may be quite appropriate. And I think it's more the hell when the storms were on and we still had to keep on working as long as we were able to. The only time we were knocked off the pier completely was when the waves started crashing over the building, and then I think we probably gave up at that point.
Was there a time where you got to stripping bits off where you went, well, this is never going to work, or did you always have faith?
Never. Honestly, I was asked that question on Thursday, and I can honestly say I never thought that we would not achieve what we're doing. What I am concerned about is the fact that the onward construction is completely dependent on being able to raise the money. The will is there, the volunteers are there, the materials are there, even though at the moment we're concerned about the volatility, for example, of steel, which because of Brexit and COVID and so on is going all over the place. But it's all down to funds. Now, if the government is going to cough up because lots of other things they've got to do, fair enough, then we've got to find the funds from somewhere. And it's a significant amount, as I said, something like 50 grand a bay. And don't forget the 60 bays.
Excellent. But when that's phase 1 you've done, phase 2, is it ready to go?
It's ready to go when we can get the lease signed with the DOI, who are the landlord. We need a new lease because obviously we're doing different parts of the pier this time. When that's signed, we can do two things. The first of all is we can release the planks for sale, for sponsorship and donation for bays 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and there are plenty. I have a list which goes up one arm and down the other arm of people who are missed out perhaps in the first phase and would like to have a plank and a plaque to record some some family member or what have you, or even to say the fact that they were fishing up the pier. And the second thing that we can do is actually to start the work, and we then, of course, have got to give instructions to Kirree, who've really helped us with the scaffolding, and they've got to put that in place. And once that's in place, we can start stripping off the top wood and think about ordering the steel.
Well, as a Manxman, Stuart, I take my hat off to you and the team that have got this far, and it really must have been an emotional time for yourselves, because when I drove past on Thursday, there's the amount of people that just had that look on their face of excitement, really.
Yes, and it was exciting for me as well. Now, of course, I'm not a Manxman, I'm just almost Manx, having been here for 53 years, so there we are.
Well, congratulations to all involved in that. Captain Stuart Mackenzie there. He's been a real stalwart of the Queen's Pier Restoration Trust to get as far as they did, and all them comments from the general public and hundreds of people who went there on Thursday in that heat to just step foot on the pier again and bringing such memories back of childhood.
It is so wonderful that this is going ahead, isn't it? You know, just all of those people, ordinary people getting together to get this open, and what, like you say, a landmark we have, and so many to enjoy when that fully opens in years to come. But you've great memories of it as a young fella?
Yeah, I used to head down there at lunch times at the grammar school, the odd time, and have a walk down it. The odd time, not fishing, but with people who were fishing, and some, conger eels the size of Loch Ness monsters have been caught, according to some people on it. But great memories, and looking forward to more that's going to be opened, as you say, in times. But that's it. You can hear the interviews in full if you go to Manx Radio's website, and you can download the podcast for free and hear all the interviews in there and past programmes as well. But for this week, we'll leave it there, and we'll see you at the same time next week. So from me, Simon Clark.
I'm me, Kirree.
We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.